Hello everyone, my name is Jolene Schaefer and I'm the Marketing Coordinator for SWK Technologies. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, What's New in Sage 100 version 2020, presented by Monica Byrne of SWK Technologies. A little housekeeping before we get started. Everyone has been placed on mute to keep the background noise down. However, you can submit any questions you have throughout the webinar. To submit a question, look for the question section in your GoToWebinar. We will answer all questions at the end of the presentation. We are recording this presentation and it will be distributed tomorrow to all attendees, as well as to those who registered but were not able to attend. Please take a moment at the end of the presentation to answer our 2-question survey. With that said, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to attend our webinar. We're here to help you get the most out of your software solutions and help you find an easier way to run your business by providing you software and industry knowledge, tools, and support whenever you need it. So whether you're here doing research for a new solution or you're just here to learn, we'd like to encourage you to ask any questions throughout the webinar. Lastly, as a quick reminder, SWK is constantly sharing important updates and software tips and tricks on our social media channels. So we encourage you to follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Monica.
Hi everybody, this is Monica Byrne with SWK Technologies. I'm going to show my screen here. Give me 1 second. Okay, so I'm Monica Byrne. If you haven't met me before, I'm a senior consultant here at SWK Technologies, and I've worked with the Sage 100 product for probably about 15 years now, supporting it and consulting a lot of, and helping a lot of our clients with their solutions with Sage 100. So in the version, Sage 100 version 2020, Sage has added a bunch of features. Some of them, it's important to know, are going to be applicable to the Sage 100C subscription licensing only. You can license Sage 100 depending on when you purchased it in 2 ways, either a subscription licensing or a perpetual licensing. So sometimes if you haven't changed anything in quite a few years, you may be on the perpetual licensing. If you have any questions or are unsure as to how you license your Sage 100 product, please reach out to your customer account manager here at SWK or the consultant that you normally work with, and we can all get you the appropriate information, especially if you want to switch to the Sage 100C and take advantage of some of the benefits there. So I have Sage 100 2020 opened on my desktop, and hopefully you can all see that. Sage has added a bunch of features in this version, especially convenience features. So they've been kind of focusing on things that are going to really help the users that users have asked for a long time. So I'll give you a list of some of those. I'm just going to go through kind of a laundry list of those, and then we're going to go into more depth as to what each of those features can do, and I'll show them to you in the product as well. So you now have the ability to enter international addresses in Sage 100 for those customers working in other countries. We have global enhancements, such as expanded field names, and we'll talk about where those are. We also have the ability now to choose a map service for when you're looking at your map, when you're looking to map your addresses for, let's say, in customer maintenance, you can now choose the map service that you do that with. We have more control over our ability to export grids, lists, etc. to Excel. So security features have been added to control who can do that. We've also added the ability to encrypt customer and vendor personally identifiable information, and this is also related to supporting the California Consumer Privacy Act, so if you do business in the California area. We've added expanded name fields in accounts receivable and accounts payable. We've also added, yay, the ability to reverse an entire accounts payable check run. I know a lot of my clients have been looking for this for a long time. And we can now retain our paid invoices and accounts payable and accounts receivable by month rather than days. So we have the ability to retain those for longer now. We have the functionality now to store expiration dates related to lot and serial numbers. So if you've been looking for a way to track expiration of products with lot and serial items, we can do that now. We also have the ability to recognize work in progress in job cost billing if you're using our job costing module. And then another new feature, which Sage is pretty excited about, is called eInvoicing, which is going to allow you to manage your invoices to your customers better and improve your cash flow. So we'll take a look at some of those key features today, and then of course afterwards, if you have any questions, please let us know, or throughout the webinar, add your comment to the webinar. So the first thing I want to show you is the international address field. International address fields have been provided to allow for international addresses to be stored and phone numbers to accommodate those that conduct business outside of the United States. So previously, I know some of my clients, if you had international customers, you kind of had to finagle the way that Sage would house that information. If you go to zip and postal code maintenance now, you'll see, and I'm going to choose Canada just as an example, you'll see that we now have zip codes and postal codes available for all kinds of countries, Canada included. So that's the first place that you would see that information. Additionally, there has been a field added here called state and province code maintenance. And if I do a look up here, you'll see all of the different provinces or countries that have been added. And then we can choose those countries. And within each of those countries, there's going to be state and provinces available to us. So all of this is recorded in Sage 100 now, so that when you add addresses to your screen, you can validate those addresses and there's room for the appropriate information. So if I go to sales order, for instance, and open sales order entry, you'll see on my address tab, actually, let me show you in customer maintenance. It's a little easier to see there. So let me go to accounts receivable main customer maintenance. You'll notice when I look at the address here, the first thing in the address is the country code. And this allows Sage to record the appropriate information related to the country that you choose up here. So that's why the country is added first now. But if you have a customer that's in a different country, and I think we have one in here, here's an international customer, you'll see that we've chosen our country of Mexico, and it allows us to put in our telephone number appropriately and record all the information that's required for addresses related to that particular country. A bunch of features in Sage 100 have been renamed from an abbreviated feature so that it's easier for users to tell what the field is for. So I'm going to show you this also in customer maintenance, but you'll see this throughout the program. On the left-hand side, about halfway down, you're going to see something called default payment type. That used to be abbreviated. It used to say DEF PAY type. So in order to make it more clear for users when they're using the system, Sage has taken out those abbreviations in most places so that you'll see the actual full wording, making it easier for the user to determine what that field is used for. As I mentioned earlier, we now have the ability to select the map service that you would like to use when you're mapping addresses in Sage 100. So if I go up here to the top to change my user settings, this change user settings box is also available when you log into Sage 100. On the login screen, there is a button for it as well. You'll notice at the bottom that we can select our map service. I have Google Maps selected. The default is going to be MapQuest. So I went in and changed this to Google Maps because that's what I prefer. Now, if I go to customer maintenance, for example, and I pull up a customer here, you'll see that if I choose the map service, it's going to open that with Google Maps because that's my preference. Sage has changed the ability to export lists, boxes, and grids to Excel. So you may have known or may have seen in previous versions of Sage 100 that you have, when you go into list boxes like this customer list box, there is an opportunity at the bottom to export that information to Excel. It does export it quite nicely. You can use this to do some quasi reports. For instance, you can use the custom button over here to change the fields that you see in this customer list. And then when you click to export this to Excel, it exports rather nicely to Excel, which is happening right now, and allows you to see the information in an Excel form and use it there. I'm just going to drag it over because it opened up on my other screen. Some clients have mentioned that they don't want all users to be able to export information to Excel. So a security event has been added to Sage 100 where you can control who has access to that information or who has access to export information to Excel. So I have only one role in here defined for myself, but you'll see if I go to the module options tab and I expand library master, there's now an option called Allow Export to Excel from Lookups, Grids, and Lists. So I can uncheck that box for myself. And now if I go back to customer maintenance, let me close this instance of it so that it's reflected for the new security. But if I go back to customer maintenance now and I do my lookup, you'll see that the Excel button at the bottom is now grayed out. So I'm no longer able to export information to Excel. So you're now able to control that by role who has access to export that information. A couple of features in Custom Office has changed also, so I'm going to show you a little bit about those. We're now able to customize entry grids for all users. So for example, if I go to sales order entry, open sales order main and open sales order entry, I'm just going to open an existing sales order. If I go to the lines tab, you'll see that these lines are configured, or these grids are configured in specific ways. So I have my item code, description, unit price, ordered, extension, comment in here. I also have my warehouse down here in my secondary grid. Let's say I wanted this to be different. We can certainly go ahead and pull up our warehouse field, and this would be me customizing it for myself, for my user. If I said accept here and I went back into sales order entry and pulled up an order, you're going to see on the lines tab that my warehouse has remained. Some clients have requested the ability to do this for all users. So to set the entry grid so that all users are seeing the same entry grid. Of course, they can still change the entry grid for themselves further, but let's say you wanted a standard for the company. That's now available in our Custom Office. So if I right-click on this panel, as long as I have access to Custom Office, of course, I can modify this panel, and I now have the ability to change those entry grids. So if I double-click on this entry grid, it'll open up this screen right here, and I can determine what I want to be where. So I want my warehouse to be up here for everyone, and I would like my item description to be up here for everyone. So I can now easily customize that, say okay, and save those changes. And I'm going to close out of Custom Office, and we'll go back into sales order entry and see our results. Now if I go to the line tab in sales order entry, you'll see my warehouse is there and my description is there as I've customized this. Now, as with any customizations in Sage 100, you don't have to do it for every user. I expressed that you could do it for every user, but you can create customization groups. So you could apply certain customizations to certain user groups depending on their role or function within your company. So there's lots of flexibility there now as how you want it to, how you want the screen to look and feel. Also in Custom Office, a masked data option has been added. So it gives you the ability to mask some data that maybe you don't want users to see. Again, this is through Custom Office, so this customization would also be able to be customized for certain groups, certain users, or everyone if so desired. I think I set it up in this company in Accounts Payable, so let's take a look. I went to Accounts Payable Division Maintenance, and you'll see when I open my Division Maintenance and scroll across the fields that my description of my division is now encrypted. I've done that with our Custom Office functionality. So by right-clicking in this screen and going to Customizer, as long as I have access to Custom Maintenance, of course, I have changed this for my ABC company, for all users in my ABC company, to not be able to see that description field, for it to be masked. And how I change that is I double-click, excuse me, wrong field, double-click the description field, go to my Options tab, and you'll see there's an option now to mask the display. So if I uncheck that now, and save my customizations, I can go back into Division Maintenance and Accounts Payable, and it will be unmasked. So that's a way that you can control fields. Keep in mind, this does not mask data, it masks the field, but it does not mask the data or encrypt the data in the tables. So if a user is running a report or something that they have, or they have role access to run a report that has the description for the division on it, they will see it there. So some consideration has to be put into that as well. You can mask fields that are string, numeric, and user-defined fields in Sage 100. So I talked briefly a little while ago about the California Consumer Privacy Act. This act grants California residents new rights regarding personal information. It allows residents of California the right to request information about a business and their collection, maintenance, and disclosure of the consumer's personal information. So basically, consumers have a right to access that personal information, ask questions about what's being retained, and opt out of that information being stored. In Sage 100, we have now added the components to comply with this California Consumer Privacy Act. I'll show you on the vendor side today, but keep in mind that you can do this in customer maintenance as well. So I'm going to open up vendor maintenance, go to accounts payable main and vendor maintenance. I'm going to choose the vendor here. I'm actually going to choose this vendor that's inactive. So the key to this is the vendor has to be made inactive in order to encrypt the personally identifiable information. If I go to the additional tab, you'll see my vendor status, of course, is inactive, and there's a little lock button to the right. This will allow us to encrypt personally identifiable information. So when I click this button, you'll see we get a prompt. This process will encrypt the vendor's personally identifiable information. This information will no longer appear on reports or be visible in any Sage 100 windows. Do you want to continue? When I say yes, it's going to run through the process of encrypting that information. It's going to encrypt the necessary information such as name, address, etc. Obviously, the invoices will still remain in history so that your totals and balances all remain the same. The information will no longer appear on reports or be visible in any Sage 100 windows. So of course, I said yes to this, and you'll notice now, if I go back to the main tab for this particular vendor, I'm no longer seeing the address information, the telephone number, etc. here. No longer see the vendor name up at the top. Also, to the right of the vendor name, you'll notice it says inactive. Vendor PII values were encrypted 6/4 of 2020. And on the additional tab, it also notes that date of when it was encrypted. This is not a permanent change, so keep in mind that it is not permanent and we can retract this. And the way to retract this is by making the vendor active again. So you'll see if I do that, it'll say reactivating the vendor status will decrypt the vendor's personally identifiable information. Do we want to continue? And I can say yes. So now it'll go through the process to decrypt that. And you'll see if I go back, my name is here, my address is here, and everything. Of course, this is controlled by security as well, so you can give certain users the ability to encrypt or decrypt any information that's necessary. So I'm just going to go ahead and make this vendor inactive again. And you'll notice by making the vendor inactive, I don't have to encrypt the information. It's just an option. Sage has also provided a utility to encrypt customer and vendor information. So we're on the vendor side. So I'm going to go down to the utilities menu on the vendor side, and you'll see something that says encrypt vendor PII. So when I click encrypt the vendor PII, it'll say it will encrypt the vendor's personally identifiable information, will no longer appear on reports or be visible in the Sage 100 windows. I can then do a lookup and it will list just my inactive vendors. So instead of looking at my entire list, now I'm only looking at my inactive vendors, and I can choose and say proceed here to make that, do the same process that we did from within vendor maintenance, just with this utility. And then I can keep this window open after proceeding by checking this checkbox so that it'll come back to this window and I could encrypt another vendor if need be. It's important to note on the customer side that if a customer is linked to a CRM company, so if you're using Sage CRM and that customer is linked to a contact in CRM, that link will be severed upon the encrypting of the data. So if you were to unencrypt the data, you would have to create that link to CRM between the customer and CRM again. So if you've ever been faced with trying to fit data into a field that's not long enough, this enhancement's for you. Sage has started looking at some of their fields, I think doing a bigger evaluation of some of their fields and how they can make it more convenient for users. So the customer name, customer contact name, vendor name, and vendor contact names have been expanded from 30 to 50 characters in Sage 100 2020. So if I go to vendor maintenance, and of course this happens on the customer side as well, this vendor name field where it says Airway Property has been expanded from 30 to 50 characters. And additionally, if I go to my vendor contacts, the contact name field has been expanded as well. This feature is only available for Sage 100C subscription users only. So again, that goes back to how you license your Sage 100C product. And of course, this is available in customer maintenance. The same fields on that customer side have been expanded from 30 to 50 characters as well. So the next feature I'm going to show you, I'm pretty excited about, and I think a lot of my clients have been really excited about it too. You might not use it very often, but when you have to use it, it's going to be invaluable. This, I'm telling you, clients have been asking for this since I started with the Sage 100 product. So have you ever processed an entire check run with incorrect information and had to reverse each check manually in Sage 100? It takes forever, doesn't it? So Sage has now added a new feature to reverse an entire check run via a utility. So you'll notice if I go to Accounts Payable and I scroll back down to my Utilities menu, there's an option called Reverse Check Run. I have two options as to how I want to select the checks that I'd like to reverse. So you'll see here if I have reverse by bank code and check number, or I can reverse by source journal and register number. So if I choose the first option, I would then choose my bank code, and I can choose a check that I want to reverse. Keep in mind, this is going to choose the entire check run. So this check, 14, happens to be one check of this particular check run. And you'll see it lists all the checks that were included in this check run. It'll tell us a status. Now, if you, let's say, reversed a check manually or previously reversed this check run, the status would not be available. And I'll show you one of those in a second. So it'll tell us 12 checks will be reversed. So this allows you to make sure that what you're doing is what you want to be doing and what you've expected. The data that you're going to get is what you've expected. So if I cancel this here and I choose a different, let's choose a different check. I'm going to choose check 7. You'll notice here that it comes up and it says 0 checks will be reversed. 7 checks cannot be reversed. At the bottom, I'm looking. 7 checks were already reversed. And you'll see all the statuses of all these checks are reversed. So it will obviously give you a clue that you've selected the right information. So I can also choose by source journal and register number. So I only have one cash disbursement source journal in this demo version of Sage 100. So that's why the source journal populated for me. If you had multiple, you'd have to choose them. And then I'm going to go to register number 11. These are those same 12 checks that I indicated I wanted to reverse when I was choosing by bank code and check number. So if I'm good with this and I say, oh yeah, this is it, this is my check date, I made a mistake, I need to reverse those, I would click proceed here. And you'll notice that it's going to take you right to the reverse check run register. So it's immediate. I'll preview this register so you guys can take a look at it. Probably make it a little larger would help. Even larger. And you'll see that all of our checks are listed here that we wanted to reverse. And you'll see we have a negative number on the right-hand side, of course, because we're reversing all of these checks. So when I close this, it'll bring up a recap by division if we're using divisions in Sage 100. And then do you want to update the reverse check run register? Yes, I do. Do you want to print the daily transaction register? I'd like to print that as well. So I'll preview that just so that you can see that our cash is being credited as it should be. Our cash is being credited. And our accounts payable is happening as it should. Our cash is being debited, sorry. Said it the wrong way. We want to increase our cash when we're reversing a check. So then we're going to update our daily transaction register. And now all of those checks are reversed. If we go back into that reverse check run and I try to choose that source journal 11, you'll see that it's going to tell us they have all been reversed. The appropriate information has been stored in stage 100 accounting-wise. The options have changed for the time frame that you can retain paid invoices. I'm going to look at this in accounts payable, but again, this is something that's available in accounts receivable as well. If I go to accounts payable setup and go to accounts payable options, if I go to the additional tab, you'll see that rather than this saying days to retain paid invoices, as it has in previous versions on both the vendor and customer side, it now says months to retain paid invoices. So we used to have a 3-digit field. We could only retain paid invoices on the vendor and customer side up to 999 days. Now we have the option to retain them for 9,999 months. So this is actually a 4-digit field, even though I'm only retaining these for 3 months here. So we could retain them for 9,999 months. I could also remove paid invoices during period end processing or year end processing. So you can discern whether you'd like to remove, at which time you'd like to remove them once they hit the mark of being retained for as many months as you've indicated up here. Okay, our next feature is in purchase order. Do you ever issue multiple purchase orders to a vendor and receive all the goods at the same time? We now have an option to receive multiple purchase orders on one receipt or invoice. Really cool, right? So if I go into purchase order, not purchase order entry, we want to go to receipt of goods entry. So we're receiving the goods in here. So we're going to go to receipt of goods entry. We're going to take our next purchase order number, and we're going to choose which purchase order that we're looking to receive it. So I'm going to choose United Computers 10028. And you'll see when I do that, there's a green button that lights up to the right of the purchase order number, and it's called Apply Purchase Orders. If I click on the Apply Purchase Orders option, it's going to give us a list of other purchase orders that we could receive at the same time as this one. There are some times when you cannot receive multiple purchase orders for a vendor, and that would be when terms codes, the purchase address, the sales tax schedule, or the ship via do not match the order that I selected originally. So those 1, 2, 3, 4 fields have to match in order for you to be able to receive them together. So from here, I can select which purchase order I want to apply to this receipt. So I'm going to say no to that one because that's completed, but I'm going to check the other one because I'd like to receive that with this one as well. I'm going to say okay to that, and I'm going to go to my lines tab. And nothing happens in demo data sometimes, right? Did I do it correctly? Oh, it's on back. These are back ordered, I think. Let's look at a different purchase order instead. Sorry about that. I must have played with this one already. So I'm going to take my next receipt number, look at my purchase order number, and we'll find a different one. So let's look at Southwest. I was hoping to find one with more than 2, but let's see if we can do it with this one. So here I choose Southwest Amalgamated Distributors. I do my plus button. One of those is completed as well. I apologize, guys. I looked at this data earlier, but it apparently was not, maybe it wasn't in this company. So we'll do one more try at this and see what we can come up with. Airway Property. So here's the one we're receiving, back order, and we have another one that we'd like to receive as well. You'll see that there's some buttons over here on the right side. We can receive all, we can receive none. Those are some options available to us. When we select multiple POs to be received on a purchase order, you'll see our purchase order number changes to multiple up here at the top. And then when we go to the Lines tab, you'll see it's going to bring in all of our items, all of our quantity orders, and we can put in our quantity receipts. You can receive, if you're set up to receive that prompt, do you want to receive purchase orders, the purchase order complete, it will come up with that prompt as well. And you could say yes, and it would base all of your quantities received to the quantity ordered. It would match them. Also, it's important to note that if I click on one of these items, and it's in my bottom grid right now, but if I scroll down, it'll tell me what purchase order number this is from. So this one's from 10026, And this one's from 10023. So then I can go ahead and fill in my quantity received for each of these. This one happens to need to be distributed, so we'll do that. Do our lot serial number distribution. I'm going to say we're going to put these in lot number 10. We're going to distribute 10 of them, and I can continue on receiving from there. Oh, that one needs to be distributed as well. Keep going on to receive whatever I need to receive on my purchase order. So I'm going to go ahead and accept and update this. Clearly, I don't have my date in the right period. Our demo data is in 2025. So you'll see here, here's my receipt register, and there'll be information on this receipt as to what purchase order it's coming from. And you'll see all my receipt information over on the right-hand side. When I close this receipt, I can put my back order fill report. We're going to say no to that right now. We're going to update our receipt of goods register. We're not going to print the daily transaction register at this time just for time's sake, because I'd like to show you another feature. So now let's say we've received those goods, and a little later on we receive those invoices for those goods. So we're going to go into receipt of invoice entry, take our next receipt number, put in the purchase order number that we received on, and put in our invoice number. You'll see I also have the plus sign here. So if I was being invoiced at the same time on the same invoice for both purchase orders, I could do that as well. So I can say apply to that, and now you'll see I'm invoicing multiple purchase order numbers. And then I would go again to my lines, note what was invoiced versus what was ordered, and I would get my invoice total and move on from there. So same way that you can receive multiple purchase orders on a receipt of goods, you can invoice multiple purchase orders as well if your vendor invoices you that way. That'll, prevent you from having to split those invoices. If the vendor sends one invoice for 2 purchase orders, you can do it all in one transaction. Okay, next, Sage has added the ability to track expiration dates for lot and serial numbers. So if I go to Inventory Management and I open Inventory Management Options on the Setup menu, on the Additional tab, you'll see I have the options on the right-hand side related to enabling lot serial expiration dates. I can enable these lot serial expiration dates for multiple different areas. So sales, issues, returns, they can all behave differently. I can require an expiration date, or I can uncheck this and not require an expiration date. I can also have it calculate my expiration dates, either by days, months, years, or don't calculate at all. So for instance, if I took days here, I would have to say the number of days before expiration, or if I chose months, the number of months before expiration, etc. So all of these can be set at the inventory management level, but they can also be set at the product line level. So if I go to inventory setup product line maintenance, you'll notice a lot serial tab has been added here, and I can also set my default for when I create an item in this product line as to how I want these expiration dates to be calculated. Additionally, just like most features in Sage 100, I can also change those options at the item level as well. So let me see, we're going to pick one of my items here, 8963, and you'll see on the More button, a feature has been added called lot serial expiration. And I can also change the settings at the item level for the lot serial expiration as well. So here I'm tracking these lot serials. They're not required. I'm not requiring for this, and I'm not calculating them. in this particular item. If I look at my item 8984 and I go to my lot serial, you'll see I'm requiring an expiration date. And on the sales side, I'm calculating my sell by date based on months. And this one, number of months before expiration, I have set to 6. And I'm calculating returns based on years for 2 years. So you see, you could use this for a variety of different items. You could use it for food, of course, if you needed to track expiration dates to lot serial items there, those kinds of things. I'm going to show you how this functionality works in inventory transaction entry, but keep in mind that this would work the same way on the sales order or purchase order side as well. So here, my transaction type, and manufacturing, of course, also. I'm going to take my next entry number. Let's see, we're going to do a receipt first. So let's do a receipt. I'm going to take my next entry number. And on the lines tab, we're going to use our item code 8983. And we're going to say that we've received 10 of those in. You'll notice I'm prompted to distribute into a lot number. So you'll see my yellow over there, or if I go down to my next line, I'm going to be prompted for that lot number. So I'm going to put the lot number in, and I'll distribute 10 to that lot number. I can put an expiration date in here if I wanted to. So let's say I want to say my expiration date is December 4th of 2020. And I'm actually going to distribute 5 in there because this was the one that we didn't require the expiration date for. So you'll see that I don't have to put an expiration date there, and it will allow that to happen. Remember, number 8983 was the one that we saw that we did not require it. So now I'm also going to receive, let me go back to that receipt. I'm also going to receive item 8984, and we'll receive 20 of those. And that will also require me to distribute it by a lot number, distribute it to a lot number. And then I'm going to distribute 20 to that lot number, and I'm going to say OK here. You'll see it'll tell me that the lot expiration date is required. So then I would have to go back and put that lot expiration date in. And say OK. So let's say I got a good deal on something. So let's say I got a good deal on something that I received in, and I wouldn't normally sell beyond the expiration date, but I'm going to try to blow it out for a good price to my customers. Sage does allow you to put an expiration date that has passed. So you'll notice if I go back into this one, for instance, I can put an expiration date of 5/31/2020. And it'll prompt you, do you want to use it anyway? And I can say yes. So if, you know, I knew that I could get something in and sell it really quickly, even though the expiration date is passed, maybe at a discount, I do have the ability to do that. And that's just kind of a soft stop there. So let's try to do another kind of transaction. We'll do a sale. So I'll sell some of those. So let's say I'm going to sell the same item. I think I have some in stock. So I'm going to sell my item 8984. I'm going to sell 2 of them to my customer. And of course, I have to distribute those. So I'm going to choose my lot number to distribute those from. And you'll see I have 9 available here. I'm going to select it. And you'll see my expiration date shows up here. My sell by date, which was calculated, shows up here as well. So you can maintain separate sell by versus expiration dates in case, you know, you need to sell it prior to the expiration date. And then keep in mind the expiration date can be changed. We're going to go ahead and say OK to that. And we'll choose from my other lot that I have in here for that particular item. And you'll notice I have a sell by. I'm well within my time here. I have to sell that by 10/25/2028, and it expires in 2029. So expiration dates can be changed or added in inventory. And also keep in mind that all of this expiration information can be brought into reporting. So we can do custom reporting and all of those types of things. So let me cancel out of here, and I'll show you where you can do that. So in item maintenance, and we're going to use our 8984 again. If we go to the cost detail tab, you'll notice that we have lots here, and our lots have expiration dates. I can go ahead on here and use the little button over on the right-hand side. It looks like a notepad to change my lot or serial expiration date. This can also be used to add expiration dates when you start using version 2020, for example, and you want to add those to existing inventory. You can add them here. You can change them here. So I'm going to say this one's going to expire in 3/30/2029, for example. So I can go ahead and change that, and I'll just change that. Of course, all of this is controlled by security as well. So if there is security that you know, if you'd like some users not to be able to change that, you can set that so that they cannot do it. We can also use Visual Integrator to import this information. So if you are upgrading to a version from a version that didn't have the expiration dates and you wanted to start using them in version 2020, we could use Visual Integrator to import that information as well. Now there is also a utility to change lot and serial information expiration dates. So you'll see if I go to my utilities menu, there's an option called change lot and serial expiration dates. So I could use this utility as well to change those within my tiers. There's some reporting that has been added in the inventory related to lot and serials. So you'll notice there's a lot serial expiration status report. So you can go ahead and preview this. We'll show us some information. There is an option to show expired dates as of. So if you were looking for expired inventory or something like that, this report could help with that. And you'll see if I expand it up here, we'll put that back to 150, that's a little large. But you'll see it'll show all of your information, all of your items, warehouses, lot serial number, and the related expiration dates. So you could review that. And like I said, you could use that report to highlight items that have expired. And additionally, there's a lot serial transaction history report. You can determine here if you want to include certain information, of course, but down the bottom here, you can look at it by a period, by a calendar year. You can sort the report by in different ways, as a lot of the reports in Sage 100. So we'll just take a quick look at that one. So that'll show all the transactions based on the dates, along with the lot serial expiration information and date. One thing I wanted to mention to you guys, this is not new in 2020, but it's driving me a little crazy, so I figured I'd show it to you. There is a default report preview zoom under your user settings. I usually have mine set to 150, so I'm not sure what happened. But now when I preview any report, it'll automatically preview to 150, and I don't have to keep changing that like I have been when I'm showing you the reporting. All right. I think we have one more feature to review, and this is one that I can't really show you, but I'll explain it to you. So do you ever wish your customers would pay invoices faster? Of course, everybody would say yes, we all do, right? eInvoicing is a new feature that Sage has added that allows you to manage your cash flow better and encourage your customers to pay faster. This has to be turned on a company-by-company basis. So you can, if you have multiple companies in Sage 100, you can use it for some companies and not for others. And you'll see in company maintenance, if I go there, I can show you that piece of it. Under the payment area, we would have to have a payment merchant account with PAYA, or what was formerly known as Sage Payment Solutions, for credit cards, ACH, or both credit cards and ACH. And you'll see there's an option down below it called Enable Payments for eInvoices. So if we had a merchant account, a PAYA merchant account, either for credit cards, ACH, or both, then we can enable this eInvoicing. And eInvoicing allows customers to pay invoices through a new Paya Connect payment portal. This is where Sage 100C licensing is required for this, and as I mentioned, the Paya merchant account. When you're given the ability to enable e-invoice payments at the company level, activating the payment features built into Sage 100 along with the connected payment solution, it'll provide information like real-time cash flow visibility. It'll speed up your cash flow, of course, speed up your remit time, simplifies your back office. So with this functionality, you can email invoice details, including click-to-pay links to your customers. So basically, when your customers get the invoice done, they can just click on a link within the invoice that was emailed to them, and they can pay directly there. You can accept credit cards or ACH, like I said, depending on what your merchant account is and how it's set up. You can also, which is kind of neat in here, you can combine multiple invoice amounts into a single transaction via a customer portal, and you can import payment information into cash receipts with a single click from your Paya portal. So all of that information, as it's processed through Paya with that merchant account, will be in a portal, and you can basically download that information into cash receipts entry from that portal, so you don't have to enter cash receipts for those invoices that were paid via click to pay. It's a really cool new feature. So if you're interested in, speeding up your return on your cash for invoicing, that would be something that could probably really potentially help with that. And I think more softwares are introducing this click to pay. People are getting, and businesses are getting more comfortable with this click to pay and paying the invoices right there. So they'll get, they'd get that in their email and they'd be able to pay that right away, which of course is a benefit to your company. So that highlights most of the new features that are available in Sage 100 2020. Just in case you didn't know, under the web content area, if you're looking in Sage 100 in the web content area and you go to the resources page, there is a what's new page here. This will highlight in detail all of the version 2020 highlights that we just talked about here, and you can go through and take a look at those there as well. If you want a refresher, also we'll have the recording of this webinar for you to review that's going to be sent out tomorrow. And with that, I will turn it over. Thank you guys, and have a great day.
Thank you, Monica. We'll now open it up for questions. If you have any questions, please enter them into your questions section of GoToWebinar, and we'll give that a minute in case any come through. And just to remind everyone, we do have a subject matter expert here. This is a great opportunity to have your questions answered in real time. It does look like we have one that came through, Monica. So here's the first one. Reverse check run feature. Can you do checks and EFTs at the same time?
Good question. Let me look and see. I don't remember seeing EFT available for that, and I haven't played with it enough to know. So let me see if I can find it quickly enough and see if we can do both. I believe we can. I will double check that, and I'll send out the comment on that. Okay. Because I'm not positive. Oh, interesting. I found it. Sorry. Anyways, reverse check run utility. Checks with a type of auto, a standard check, and electronic that are posted to the cash disbursements journal can be reversed. So the answer to that question is yes.
Perfect. Okay. Well, that looks like all the questions that have come through. So thank you so much, Monica, for your informative presentation and for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.